whatever milestones that Black people make against hate, it ends up benefiting all the other people of color. I can't see what his end game is. The Republican Party is the party of racism, is the party of white supremacy, is the party of hate. This is wrong, and it needs to stop.
Everybody wants to go back and drag that piece of history up, but they don't want to go back and deal with what their ancestors did to the indigenous people and to Black people in this country. You got to go. And you got billionaires talking about going to space and Jeff Bezos, go, never come back. I hope you get lost. This man has lost his mind.
Boom! Come on, girlfriend. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dads Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that amplifies Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, drink, and travel. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. It's Saturday night on the East Coast, November 6th. Tomorrow morning, 2 a.m., the clocks go back, so we get sleep back. And I've been up since 6 o'clock this morning, so I'm going to need that extra hour of sleep after this. But I've got my energy ready because it is State of Things with Jill and Aisha. They weren't here last week. We did a repeat, so you know when 2 weeks go by, double for your trouble if you're watching this live or watching it on replay, or you're going to be listening to the replay. So let me bring out the wonderful two ladies, Aisha and Jill. How we doing?
Great.
Good.
How's the week been?
It went by quick, actually. It was a pretty quick week.
Nice.
It's been, active, always changing. There's always, I think that's why the week goes so fast, because there's always some kind of movement.
Yes.
And the
daily
weather changed so fast. Oh my gosh. It went from like 70 to like 30. 40.
Oh,
Wow.
no.
Wow. I'm telling you, ladies, time is good. We're almost here at the end of the year.
I know.
Like,
can you believe it?
Like it's almost
I can't believe it.
Yeah, the end of the year already. It's just like gone by. Well, we got a lot to chat about tonight.
We do.
We got a lot to chat about tonight. So I guess for both of you ladies, you got this news that the American House of Representatives passed Joe Biden's spending bill and his infrastructure bill.
About time.
Yeah, something.
Well, do you think that like the spending bill got cut back so much though?
They scrimped and like pinched and hemmed and hawed about, excuse me. I tweeted this yesterday that the Democratic Party is going to be its own downfall. Because the thing of it is that as a whole, the party agrees about certain things, general things like healthcare, education, but it's the nuts and bolts of things that they disagree on, and it's those disagreements when they become public that really make the public alarmed about what's going on with the party. Those are things that I think that should stay private in those caucus meetings that they have that aren't privy to the public. Those are things that they should keep quiet, because the Republicans do it, and they move in solidarity, and they always look like they're together. So when you have, for example, the Democrats having a progressive caucus, and then all these other caucuses, that have these voices that then come out and say, oh, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, and this vote, this like, oh, you didn't see you knew the Republicans weren't voting on any of this, okay? It was the Democrats, the different levels of Democrats that kind of held the bill back from being voted on at this last time. And I think that everyone agreed that it needed to be passed. I think the nuts and bolts of it were what really got people stuck on, and the fact that they allowed two people to hold it back, particularly in the Senate, it's nerve-wracking, because it means that our government is so fragile that two people can literally stop progress.
Yeah.
What does that say about it's not just to our public, but to the rest of the world? And we try and go to other countries and say, oh, no, you should be like us. You should govern like we do. You shouldn't have a dictatorship. What is it when we have two people holding up a government? That is a dictatorship.
Well, for me, there's a part of it that with what's happening, because it's kind of like we have three parties essentially happening. Like there's, the third one that wants what it wants, and then the independents or the democratic socialists want one thing, and then you have X, Y, and Z, and the Republicans and the Democrats. And so we have that whole extension underneath our arms. And, after a while, I agree with Aisha that for me, I just start to think that this is just ludicrous that two hemorrhoids can be causing all of this problem, Sinema and Manchin. And that's only the tip of the hemorrhoid. I think that these people are incredibly disruptive, but I also feel that the enabling of them is kind of what's kept this going, and the fear that one is going to flip or switch. I mean, Manchin doesn't have to switch over to in name to be a official Republican. He is actually acting like one and acting on their behalf. So we have a serious problem with that. It's like, that's a problem. And so, and I'm not going to slag off the administration too much, but I will. I mean, looking at the way some people manage their families and their children is such an indicative, clear thing of how Biden and them are running the party on a certain level. And it's really frustrating, because did he not ever hear of like tough love? I mean, it's like to a point, I get really frustrated with them. And I've been dismayed for a while with the Democrats. And at some point, it's like the telenovela that you just keep watching. And at some point, I question what they're trying to do. It's not clear. The messaging is not clear. And it's like, are they trying to keep one foot over here with their toe in another place? If the objective was to capture more Republicans, that's not really how this should have been going down. Or their hearts too agree somewhere with the moderate Republican concept. So for me, it starts to look very orchestrated that we have these two foils, Sinema and Manchin, that are actually protecting the corporate interests for them. And they've gone out on a line, and that it's all been agreed. And I don't want to create conspiracy theories, but I know, just sitting at home, sometimes I'm like, this doesn't make any damn sense. It just doesn't. And the fact that people are incapable of finding a law, enforcing a law, is something my brain cannot take in anymore, because I'm wondering how we got along all these years. And, I just don't know how this is possible, that now all of a sudden everybody is impotent and can't do anything. And I'm not buying it. I'm just like saying, wow, they're all trying to keep their interests, accommodate them, as well as trying to push the progressive the progressive concept because they want the young people, because the gap between these groups is so huge. So, but the Democrats always try to wedge in between so they can have everybody. And that's why they can't straddle the fence. They've got to make a decision. And so that's my problem with it. And I'm not impressed with any of them at the moment. Not any of them. I'm glad they passed it, but it's a lot less than we wanted.
Yeah.
But then, you know.
Yeah. And this is my question. And I know later on, folks, we'll talk about the results of the elections last week. So we'll sort of start with it here, but we'll get deeper dive in a few moments. But how much bite does this bill have left? Was this just become a symbiotic thing now because it's been watered down so much?
Well, at this point, it really is just symbolic. It's just they passed it because it was something that they said that they were going to do, was just to pass the bill. It's not about what's in it, because the truth of the matter is they don't even know what's in the bill, what's all in it. I think what the politicians are dragging their feet on realizing is because if they realize this one point, a lot of them are out of a job. And this was the thing about Dave Carville that really irritated me the other day too, was what he said about this whole woke culture thing. Americans are actually more progressive than what politicians give them credit for. Just because we see the people, if we weren't as progressive as what politicians don't think we are, there wouldn't be the Proud Boys. There wouldn't be all this Make America Great Again talk. There wouldn't be this whole CRT thing. It's the fear of us being a progressive country that has stirred up all of this stuff. It's the fear that we are becoming a browner country, and with a browning of America becomes progressive, a progressive spirit. And so because of that, you have a lot of people, and particularly white people, white males especially, who are fearful of that. And so what do? They stand in the way of that progress. And with that, they stand in that progress is in our legislation. And so they're like, oh, it's too much money. Let's pull back on the money. Let's pull back on this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And so then you have these watered down bills like this that really stand in the way of progress. Like, for example, I don't understand why childcare was in an infrastructure bill. It makes no sense. Why prescription drugs were in an infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill should have been a clean bill, building roads, building all these bridges, all those kinds, pipes, water, even just helping with carbon emissions and all of that stuff, and climate should have been in the infrastructure bill. It should have been a clean bill. The spending bill should have included those other things, but I guess they figured that they wouldn't be able to get those things passed unless they stuck it in the infrastructure bill. And I think we convolute our bills so much that the American people can't get behind them because they don't understand what's in them.
So then, go ahead, Jill. Sorry to interrupt.
My one issue is that I used to always feel that Americans were afraid of this. I was believing in that whole, they're afraid of the black and brown happening in their nation, but I'm not really 100% on that anymore. I think that that's the talking point of the Republicans, and somewhere they ginned up their base to actually follow and really believe that there's that threat, because we're talking about many white people in this country now who definitely have biracial grandchildren or biracial somebody in their family, or so. What happened is why I think Trump was so clever, because he knew that the one thing that no one was really talking about, where all of the American people come together, is that people are miserable here. They are suffering and misery. They just didn't want everybody to look at each other and go, are you miserable? I'm miserable. We're all miserable. So what happens by creating the divide with race, and what that creates is it divides and prevents people from getting together, like let's say in the French Revolution, when they were furious with the elites and said the hell with it. But that reveals that there's a fear with the elites in this country, because they're really pushing home this divide. And what happens is that the key that we were experiencing this is when you look at the what the religions are pushing, and they're pushing apocalyptic ends of the world and all of that. So when you have a group of people that are sitting around waiting on a Messiah or a somebody to come along, and this was seen very early on in America. People were always talking about it's coming, we're in the last days, da 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 da. When people are sitting there waiting on this Messiah, they're going to project it onto someone. So Trump and his crafters were very, very on point about what was happening. But the bottom line in America is that people haven't been happy for quite some time. Financially, the child care, all of these things that are quality of life issues that Aisha mentioned, prescriptions, they have now been overshadowed and glossed over. And they've got people so ginned up on race that they're not even thinking about their own interests for themselves. Like, do you want grandma or great grandma in the Appalachians to go and pay $400 or $600 for her insulin? Because realistically, if you put all those people in a focus group, black, white, green, yellow, blue, everybody would say, and in agreement, that this is wrong. But somewhere they've changed that tide because they don't ever want poor people to look at them. I mean, it's kind of bizarre to see Nancy Pelosi sitting up there talking about the rich elites in this country when she's pretty freaking rich. You know, I find it a little bit makes me kind of cringe. And it's not just her, it's all of them, even on the Republican side. Mitch McConnell telling, and Manchin, and what poor people don't want. These dudes haven't been poor in a long time, if ever. So I don't think leadership, you know, Eva Peron said, when the rich have ideas about the poor, they have poor ideas. And she was right. See, everybody wants the Eva Peron, I'm one of you. But no, they aren't. They really aren't.
Okay, let's catch up with some comments early on here. Chris is saying, agreed, ladies, and I have been saying for months now, the Democrats in power need to collaboratively strap on a pair, stop playing, quote, good cop, unquote, and get tough before the fast approaching midterms, or we are doomed. Real Django says, there are so many problems with the Biden administration, so many nonsensical things going on, it almost seems like they're suffering from 45 brain. Chris says, Sinema and Manchin just defect already. They are just pimples on the backside of democracy. Let's see. Blue Rains. Hey, y'all, it's the fear of the rising majority, and they will stop at nothing to keep their power.
True.
Jen saying, Aisha, you're totally correct. Blue Rains is saying, right, Jill, I will never understand the poor and middle class white conservatives in particular who continue to vote against their interests.
Yeah, because that's how they know that the KKK worked ages ago. It was one of the points that they had to make them feel, well, we're a little bit better than they are. And they also have a lot of that machismo, and they push that will muddle through and you don't need a handout. But actually, it's all so inaccurate, because there were people actually upset about this infrastructure bill being passed because they think it's socialism that there are roads being put up. I mean, what are you paying your taxes for? I mean, if the Republicans and the Democrats do not get it together, it will rear its ugly head later on. Trust me, for both of them. And, you know, heads will be rolling, because you can only do this type of glossing with people for so long before they finally catch on that it's not us, it's you.
So as we look at this, are these bills going to make any significance? Like, I know President Biden needed them at any cost. Like, he needed a win.
Well, they won't make it. Here's the thing, too, is that they won't make any immediate difference, because remember, they pass the House. We see what happens in the Senate. We'll wait and see what goes across his desk when he signs, and then the real outcome is, when does implementation take place? Because, are they
True.
immediate, or are they like, does implementation start in 2024?
Right.
And that's always the case with a lot of the legislation that gets passed, is that people are like, how come we're not seeing this immediately? How come we're not seeing the immediate results? Well, that's because a bill that was signed in 2008 didn't start being implemented until 2012. And then the person that's in leadership at that point then takes credit for it,
And I think the timing of this administration is so bad, because they passed something and it was like okay.
Yeah.
See, what happens is they don't know how to read the room, and nobody really cares today. It has been elevated, and we're all like, okay. And it's like, especially coming off of what just happened, I do think that they need to keep the momentum going and deliver the goods. It's a lot of delayed gratification here, if they'll get any, because people, until they see it, they really won't believe it.
And I think that we also have to be careful, and kind of, even though we want what we want, and we want it now, we also have to be careful and give this administration a little bit of grace, because we came off 4 years of a really, really difficult regime. And that all you can do is call it a regime, not an administration. It was a regime. And we want to see some immediate results, but we do have to take into consideration that it has been just nine months, really, that Joe Biden's been in office. And it's going to take more than 9 months to undo the damage of 4 years.
And I would also add that we should really be suspect of the 13 Republicans that did chime in to do it, because I believe they were orchestrated and told to do it. Because I believe that we know this money is going to hit all these districts and all these places, and they're going to steal money. This is what they always do. There won't be a ton of bridges built. It won't happen. And if it does, it's going to be half-assed, because that's why they wanted it, but they couldn't show that much bipartisanship. I believe if we really put our heads together and look at the 13 and go, what do they have to benefit, and how many side deals are going to be made with different states, with contractors coming in from somewhere else, that will supplement and start to feed the rest of the GOP, the Congress. That's how they do it. They're not doing it just for their state. They're doing it for the party. But
those 13 are in real fragile races coming up.
Right. Well, yeah, we'll see. They're still going to take their money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's catch up on some comments here. Real Django. Every politician in America needs to be straightened out. I wish that reporters would ask most of the politicians, what's wrong with you? Right?
I agree.
Chris says, for God's sake, there are a number of people out there who actually believe that JFK Jr. is going to return for the quote coronation of 45, unquote, as the Arkanist king soon. Yes, Jill, the passing of this bill is truly anticlimactic.
Perfect word.
Blue Rains, and how long will this legislation stay in place? Can a future majority Republican House Senate roll back the legislation?
Yes.
Tim Frey from Toronto area here. Infrastructure bill is set to be implemented in 2 to 3 months, according to the White House. And then finally, Real Django says, I'm going to have to switch back to being a Republican. Just kidding.
But the full implementation, how long will it take? That's the question. They might start implementing part of it, but the full implementation will take how long? Because when you think back about the infrastructure bill under Obama, that one took a full, what was it, like 2 years, 3 years? And they're still doing some of the projects.
Can I just say something about Pete Buttigieg? It's off topic, but I really want to get this out there. we as women have worked in corporate America. We sit up there and we slave away for less money than our male counterparts. And I honestly think it was bad timing of him to take his time out, to be in parental leave or whatever he was doing. Just like the rest of us, we get our periods every month. We had to schedule things and try to have our children within reason. 2 men, one of which is not carrying it. And I've seen women work until their 9th month, just the physical biology of that. I think it was really bad timing. I don't know, that's off topic, but I'm going to say that we need him to be present. And, you know, there's a little bit to be said for, I disagree with both sides sometimes, and I sometimes agree with the other side. But we're trying to run a nation here. And there's some things that need to get done. Shelves are starting to empty out here in LA. It's really not cool. We have a problem. And frankly, you know, that's just how I feel. I personally think it was a bad time to take your parental leave. And because that is a situation that could have been managed and arranged. So there, I said it.
Well, and you know, I'm sure the Republicans will use that.
But they've talked about, you know, maybe not to the degree that I am, but I thought about it. And I've worked with women who have gone all the way to their 9th month if there was a crisis going on. In their 9th month from home, you know, like getting down busy. We're always being forced to, because of the fear of losing our jobs, you keep doing it. And I get it. And that's wonderful. But he just got his job. And normally he has more adequate planning mechanisms than most women biologically do. Okay. We don't often plan our pregnancies, but 2 men can.
Okay. Jen says, Jill, yes, 100% correct. Totally bad timing. Chris says, oh, yes, Jill. Blue Rain says, people are lined up today waiting for JFK Jr.
It's so sad. Having met him, it's really sad. Just like, oh my God, he couldn't have been anything more against crap like this.
Aisha, you have anything to say? I see you're shaking your head and exhaling. You want to add anything?
I just can't believe that they would. The fact that they think that he would fake his own death. I mean, first of all, this has got to be painful for the Kennedy and the Bissett families. Okay,
Totally.
But
Well,
the fact that
2
they
children.
would think that he would fake his own death and then want to come back to support Donald Trump of all people.
It's horrifying. You know, it's horrifying because he was a lovely person. And really, he was exactly that guy that all of us think he was, who could sit down with anybody. And, you know, this is just it's just unreal to me. Unreal.
Wow. Yeah, when I started reading about that JFK stuff, I'm going, really?
Yeah.
Again, these are the Pizzagate people.
And they even told up Robin Williams that they saw him in the crowd. And that's awful for his family as well, too. I mean, we've really lost the plot on just human decency. There's y'all. Yeah, that him too. He, you know, it's just, this is what I'm talking about, this apocalyptic return and where the attachments lie. And particularly with the boomer generation, when you look at the boomers, because I'm a boomer, but like the Bidens and the Mansions and them, they're the silent generation, by the way. Because they're a lot older than me. But the thing is with boomers, everything was a little bit hunky-dory or whatever, but what they're kind of noticing psychologically is that people are having a really hard time with change and the shift in what is actually happening. I mean, look at all these reboots of TV shows that people want again. And that's really strange. And all that is about having an attachment to something that is no longer in existence. So we have a mental crisis going on here, and people cannot handle it. They don't know how they're going to live. They haven't saved enough money. That's what I'm saying. This has been going on for a while. It doesn't just come up. People are miserable, and they're angry that life is not what they were told it was supposed to be. Because you got to remember, as we age, we look at our parents and we see what they have. So you automatically assume you're going to have that. And unfortunately, generations, it always changes, but we're not, a lot of people checked out for good.
Rio Dango is saying maybe group therapy, maybe.
National, every
National,
day, gong
national
goes off.
group therapy, national group therapy. Well, folks, and thanks everyone who's watching live. Thank you. We have some new people on, actually 2 individuals from Canada, Christopher and Tim. So thank you for chiming in. Very much great to, and thank you for contributing with your comments. You're watching or listening to State of Things with Aisha and Jill, and we're rocking it. Next conversation piece is we're going to spend a little deep dive on this one, because last week there were some elections in America, and we want Aisha and Jill to give some of their takes on these elections that were held last week. And what we're going to do, you can't see this if you're listening to this, but I'm pulling up an article from CNN. It's like takeaways from the 2021 elections, and I'm going to go through each one of the points and have the ladies give their take. So first up, Virginia had trended blue, and then Tuesday happened. Comments?
Well, you and I were talking about this before we went on air, and one of the things I was saying is that people forget that Virginia is still a southern state. So think the whole CRT, Make America Great Again thing, it plays well in Virginia. And also, Terry McAuliffe was just the wrong candidate. Let's be honest. It's like, it was like Hillary Clinton being the wrong candidate for 2016. It was her turn. So let's run her. Terry McAuliffe was governor already of Virginia at one time. People don't forget. They don't have short memories. He was governor when 2013 was like the last time he was governor. And so people don't forget. People don't forget that he was governor. And so they needed somebody new and fresh. If Democrats were trying to hold on to that governorship, they were going to have to get somebody who was young, somebody probably a little bit more progressive, to really energize the base in Virginia who is going to show up, who are going to be young, who are going to be more minorities, who are going to be the college students that are there, who are going to show up to the polls. They trotted out old, dried up Terry McAuliffe, who had been there before. And, it's like, whatever. So Youngkin comes out, and he made the culture war his platform. He made CRT his platform. He promised something that he could deliver because it didn't exist. He said from day one, I can guarantee that we will end teaching CRT in the classrooms. Well, guess what? They don't teach CRT at all. He can deliver that. And that was all he campaigned on. And then he was also able to hold Trump at a distance. Here's the thing. White women are voting these people in. White women overwhelmingly voted for Youngkin, the same way that they overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and in 2020. Keep that in mind. That is something to really pay attention to. And in New Jersey, don't get your nose out of whack because what's his name almost lost New Jersey, because New Jersey's had Republican governors before. Like I told you before, they had Chris Christie. What you need to watch out in New Jersey is how their state house looks, because remember, Chris Christie always had a Democratic majority in the House and in the state Senate, and he had to work with them. And so the governorship really didn't make a big difference with New Jersey there. I think Rachel Maddow broke it down really well this week when she said that, what Joe Biden had here was something that hadn't happened since Reagan, where usually when a new president comes in the year after, he has lost both New Jersey and Virginia every year since Reagan. Joe Biden was the first president since Reagan to have not lost both. And so that people were probably getting more upset and excited than they needed to.
Jill, your thoughts about the Virginia results?
Okay, a couple of things. For me, yes, they did try to reboot McAuliffe, and that didn't work. And you see, that's where they played the cards wrong, because they needed to calculate how many new citizens had moved in during the pandemic. There was a new influx of people who've moved to these regions. They didn't calculate that there were a lot of young mothers that existed that just fall for it. When you're a young mom, you're like, oh my God, they're doing what in school? And so CRT went over great because, that's what they all wanted to believe, that it was going to be taught in their schools, considering in these rich areas that voted for Youngkin, most of them send their kids to private schools, which is really bizarre, so you have to really evaluate that too, if it's a real how disingenuous these excuses of why this happened they might be, because then there could be a race issue about that, because basically you're saying CRT to some of these people and they're thinking CRT is just when we sit and talk about the civil rights of Martin Luther King. So they're equating that. So basically what they don't want, from what I'm gathering, they don't want Black history taught at all, period. And I really wish that if McAuliffe saw that going down with CRT, I wished he would have said, well, what does that constitute? Because that Virginia group had been passing out class projects from teachers they're using CRT. And it was things like, how many diverse people do you know? What jobs do they have? And whatever. And it was like a kid's project. It was really like, it wasn't CRT, but for some reason, everybody responding to this thought it was outrageous. And this was all on Facebook. Facebook is still doing its thing. And they know how to work it, because every kid has to bring, how many people who are diverse do you know? So, but it really wasn't CRT. And that needed to be said. Mind you, a lot of these people have made up their minds, but the reality is they don't want their kids to feel bad about being white. And here's the thing. Black kids have dealt with it for 100 years, 200. I don't know. It's not that bad. It might build a little character to feel a little bad about yourself for a little bit. But the other thing that went on that was strange with McAuliffe was that he just was out of touch, and he kept hammering home Trump. And you got to remember, people had already experienced him and they'd forgotten him. And what they did remember wasn't favorable. And it's true. He was not the one, and they made a bad mistake. And this is when the establishment Democrats and the old silent generation need to stop putting these oldies in, because they don't have the zhuzh to get people motivated, and it's over. And, that's just what it is. We know that people are swayed by businessmen, which is crazy, because businessmen are very corrupt in this country. And they put a guy from the Carlyle Group in. But that's because Republicans vote with their money. So do Democrats too. But most people do vote with their money, and that's it.
Okay.
They don't care. They don't have a conscience about what Donald Trump did to actually hurt people. And maybe the media should spend more time showing the sad stories from that, and not just the immigrants, but people in this country.
What Democrats really didn't do, which was horrible, was go after the Black woman running for lieutenant governor. They should have, I mean, they didn't even really support the Black woman that they had running against her.
I know.
That was surprising.
Yeah.
You know, you heard nothing about the Black woman running against her.
Because this is the problem with liberals, and you're absolutely right. It was like 2 Black people. And then all the liberals were like, well, what do we do? We can't attack them both. How do we attack them? Because, you know, here's the thing. Sometimes you do lose jobs, not because of your color, but because you're incompetent. And that I've said it before. We can't, you know, we have great liberals out here in San Francisco who wouldn't be caught dead having a homeless group encampment of tiny houses being built within their zip code. So what does that mean? I mean, really? So there's a lot of hypocrisy, and the Democrats will eat themselves if they keep trying to appease to, I might offend this one, I might offend that one. You know, it's like that's got to stop, or you'll keep putting yourself in a trick bag, and then you sound crazy.
But they put their money behind the wrong candidate. If they had put their money behind that Black woman that was running and really amplified her, they would have at least won the lieutenant governor seat, because there's no reason as to why the Republican one won. I mean, she was saying more off the wall stuff than Youngkin.
In Buffalo, they didn't support the progressive there.
We'll get to that part.
Okay.
We're gonna get that because we got 7 more to go.
Okay. Right.
we got 7 more to go. So what we're gonna do, because we got 7 more to go, we're gonna take a break, folks. So we back in a short moment, and we're gonna talk more about the election results and what does that mean for the future of America, period. So keep it locked. We'll be right back. So ladies, what is going on?
Just that he needs to get it together.
Sick of that. I am sick of it.
Something is seriously wrong with you.
Is that, I mean, why is he still there?
She shouldn't be near Congress.
You need an exorcism, because I don't know what is wrong with you people.
It was so powerful.
And I really wish everybody would stop bowing down to this.
What is he talking about? This makes no sense.
They know they are not the oppressed party, but they love being the superior ones, and they want to flaunt it.
So it was always made political, particularly for people of color and the LGBTQ population.
We end off every episode with a cockroach. This episode's cockroach.
Everything.
Everything?
All the things are going on.
All the things?
Mm-hmm.
We are back. State of things. Aisha and Jill are in the house. November 6th. Clocks go back. Clocks go back.
We get an extra hour.
Clocks go back. So continuing on in regards to the results of last week's, some of the elections last week in America, our next focus point, because we're going to go through this CNN article, we're going to pull it up right now. Sorry you can't see this if you're listening, but hey, you're going to get the benefit of listening to the great stuff if you're listening. Next point, Republicans can focus on the economy and education. Thoughts?
I don't agree.
Are they really focusing on education?
Right.
And they're focusing on it's not really education, because CRT isn't really taught in it. You know what I mean? It's not taught. They're just targeting something. They're making it seem like education, but it's not.
Yeah. I this is just filler for me. It's what we hear all the time. All the time.
All right.
Same old.
Blue Rain says the majority can't even explain what CRT is.
Yeah.
You know, but the Republicans are really, this is their power issue.
Well, education has always been it has always been their thing, whether they were Democrats or Republicans, whichever party they flipped to, because going back to segregation, education was always their thing. And it wasn't so much education as it was miscegenation.
Okay. I think we're done on that one. So let's move to the next one. But actually, I'll save comments to the end. So we'll continue on here. Voters may have moved from COVID-19. Thoughts?
I don't think so, because you see how they're still acting in school board. In school board meetings, they don't want the mandates. I think that COVID-19 wasn't an issue this go around because it wasn't on the ballot. But I don't think voters have moved away from it.
Jill?
I think they want it gone. I think they want their mandates gone. And I don't think they think it's a serious threat to them.
Okay. Next up, making it all about 45 didn't work. One of you two mentioned that earlier on. Do you want to give a little deeper dive, either one of you?
Because I think that, they have forgotten. I mean, if you're going to talk about Trump, then you need to bring it. And what he brought just wasn't enough. And what he brought was he was shaming them for liking him, because reminding them of him only further. And if he talked about his dirty deeds and all the things that he did, they don't give two farts about it. And so it's kind of like, know your audience. These people deep down supported 45 somewhere. They do, but they think they're above it all and think that no, that's not me, but it is them. So that was maybe not the wisest move on how to lure people. I mean, we have to really look at the character of this country and the people who really live here. They're not as nice as people want you to believe. They're absolutely horrible, atrocious human beings. And they are not going through this shift very well. And they are the lowest grade of human beings in this country. They only think about money. They only think about themselves. They give to charity every now and then, blah, blah, blah. It's the same old, same old. And they're not willing to make any sacrifices. So talking about him, the guy that they can look in the mirror and see themselves, maybe wasn't a good thing.
And it's difficult
unless you bring it and really, yeah, exactly. But I don't even think that was it. It was like, I don't see what he did that was so bad anymore. I mean, because otherwise they wouldn't have fallen for the CRT thing. So that says everything about them. Because like I said before, I'm not convinced that it isn't just American history, Black history that they want to get rid of. Let's just go down to the basics here. That they know it isn't, CRT is not taught there. I do not buy that they don't know it. I think they rode that wave the best way they could. They don't want you talking about Black folks being lynched, Emmett Till. They don't even want that. They don't. And they played everybody, making everybody pretend that they don't know it. And the media allowed it. They knew. They weren't that stupid. They don't want talk like that. They are still a Confederate, old, racist, and they are. And racism has its degrees. That's what it is. Not in my house.
Anything else you want to add, Aisha, before we move on to the next point?
No, I think Jill's right that they're going to act like they don't know what they mean, but they mean what they say. And that the whole thing with 45 is that, again, he's not president right now.
Right.
And so he's not really doing anything that people can point to at the moment and say, look what he just said on TV. Look what he just did, to kind of point to and say, this is why we need to, denounce him. That worked last year. last year's election. It's not right. Like right now, there's nothing that anyone can point to. And that's just how, politics work.
Yeah.
Okay, second last point in the article. New Jersey's tight race is a bad omen for Democrats. And I know, Aisha, you mentioned that, talked about it a few times before. Anything you want to add, either one of you, about the New Jersey tight race being a bad omen for Democratic Party?
No, like I said, it's like that's New Jersey politics. New Jersey has been here before, where they've had a Republican governor with a statewide majority of Democrats in their House and their Senate. I mean, like I said, they just went from having Chris Christie to having Murphy. So it's not like they have, like, this is unfamiliar territory for them.
Right. I agree with her.
Okay. And the final point in the article, elections still work. Actually, two more. That's the second last one. Elections still work. So the elections still work in America?
Well, Youngkin's son was caught trying to vote twice, and he's 17.
And they tried to say that he misunderstood, that he wasn't old enough.
But the real horror of that is that we have Black people who are going to jail for 5 years for even doing those attempts. And, when is everybody, black, white, brown, blue, going to say, this isn't fair? I mean, it just isn't fair, even if you just put the cases on the table without color in this. But everybody's so color struck in this country. And yeah, he did it twice, which means he was emboldened. This is a bold child. So, and that kid, what's wrong with all these politicians' kids? Damn. It's like, shit, stay home. This is the proof that they need term limits, so you can get home and spend some time with your crazy ass kids, because clearly all of them got some freaking problems.
Elections work.
And they want us to use it as it's relatable.
But voting rights laws need to be enhanced, because clearly the fraud is not on the left. It's on the right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm bad at counting here. We have a few more. So next up is voters rejected ambitious police reform in Minneapolis.
Well, again, here's the bad talking point that we talked before. It was the what was it?
Defund the police.
Defund police was just a bad phrase.
Yeah, we said that. Remember, we were all like,
said this before. It was a bad phrase, and that is what it was. Police reform, defund police. They've got to get a better talking point, okay? Yeah. And that's why it just did not. It just did not go the way that people had hoped.
But yet again, they're going to hold them
bad when it comes to messaging.
They're going to play that too. This is yet again. Everybody knew they weren't talking about defunding them. It's back like CRT. They knew, but they hold you to those little slip ups, you know? And that's the thing. But I'm not going to give the people that voted it down a pass either, because they know what this is about, and they know that it's something that's sorely needed. I mean, unless they're okay with their authoritarian police running through the streets doing whatever they want. Nobody said that every police officer is, crazy or racist. But you have to admit that we do need a solution to figure out how we can clean that little system up and make it run like a well-oiled machine, because it doesn't. And we're dealing with human beings who have biases and all this. We need a better solution. And I can't believe that they wouldn't be down for, there's got to be some people in these communities that have great ideas, that are not thinking on a political thing, just a solution. We've got to stop taking some of our things that are valid structural problems and making them political. Because if we all sit back and look at it, we go, we pay X amount of millions every year for lawsuits or that the police are having with people, and, an impotent justice system. And, they spend money like no tomorrow. So we got to we have to just get real with each other, because it's not real. I mean, at these town halls and stuff, they need to go, do you think it's okay? I mean, Ask a question back to somebody asking you a question. Do you think it's okay? What should we do? You're going to criticize me, but what's the solution?
Okay. And then the last point, there are mixed messages for Democrats in mayoral races as moderates triumph in New York, but progressive notch historic wins. So yes, Eric Adams in New York is a moderate, but then when we have Michelle Wu, mayor now of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a mixed message. I mean, people tend to think that New York is a really progressive city, when you got to remember New York City is 5 boroughs, and they're not all 5 boroughs are as progressive as Manhattan.
Not at all.
So the fact that there is a moderate, remember Rudy Giuliani was mayor of New York City at one point. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that there is a moderate there. But Boston, however, is a very progressive city. So it makes sense that they have a progressive mayor. So, and let's not forget that Pittsburgh got its first Black mayor ever.
Yes.
So there were a lot of surprises in mayoral races. Oh, and I do have to say, my aunt did win her race in school board, Norwalk, Connecticut.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
My friend Nikimi Hayes is awaiting her automatic recount, because it was just 17 votes, school board in Meriden. So, there were a lot of down ballot races
which were important,
which were, that really went in favor of Democrats, that didn't get the kind of reporting that they really should have. So should Democrats be worried? I think, we're talking, people are really concerned about the big races, but on down ballot races, Democrats did very well.
But one thing I did forget to say about Glenn Youngkin was that his strategy was he sort of beefed up the Latina vote and the Asian vote. So we know that there were about 2/3 separated from those who had voted for Biden. Took a sway and a dip over with Glenn Youngkin. And that is, since that strategy worked, then I do believe that they will use it in other races. And that's something we have to ponder, because even I was not pleased about that, because at that day, if I tweeted something, it was like, we use this people of color umbrella for everybody, but everybody's not evenly distributed even within that. And it's great about Michelle Wu, but I really will observe what she does, because like I said, not all people of color are equal in that world. And we need to not let it derail some of what the African-American struggle has been. There's still systemic racism, and I have seen Asian communities come here and fall right in line with the white supremacist order and structure of Black people not allowed in my store, basically, or being incredibly racist and rude. I'm not trying to incite anything, but it's definitely an issue. And I think these areas of people of color, since we lack such leadership, they need to come together and build some kind of coalition in these communities, because you're looking at somewhere like Compton right now with an influx of Asians coming in and buying out the community and displacing tons of African Americans. You can't walk into an Asian bank and most likely as a Black person get a loan. But if you live in Orange County, you could go, and you're Asian, you can go to one of the Asian banks and get your loans. And that's how they have funded such a stronghold in their own communities. And Republicans knew that and decided, we're going to attack them. So what they did was they went after a school in Northern Virginia, which had an issue with CRT. and they targeted them again. And I'd just be curious from the data, how old were those people? Were they older Asian and Latinos, or were they younger? Because that's very, very critical to know. And if they do a postmortem, they need to find out what that is.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't do a
remember Boston. Remember, Boston is just coming off of having a Black female mayor.
Yes, they are.
She is the outgoing mayor. She's the interim mayor now. She's the outgoing mayor. So Boston is ready for a change. So she was the first Black and female mayor. So now they're having another female mayor, this one Asian. So Boston is ready for some change. And remember, Boston had that long history of racism and particularly dealing with the busing issues in the 70s. So for Boston, this is a major milestone.
Well, definitely it sets up for an interesting next year when it comes to midterms. It'll be very, very interesting. And stay tuned in here, because these two ladies will give you the takes that most people ain't even thinking about when it comes to what's going on with the midterms. I've had a number of comments. I've held back so we could get through all these 8. So let's catch up on these points. Dango saying runoff election for Alicia Moore and Andre Dickens for the mayor of Atlanta. I'm happy. And the Jersey governor's election, and just what W2H with the Virginia governor's election.
Yeah.
Real Dango saying also, Republicans are all about miseducating and bamboozling people. Chris is saying here, I was very happy to see Eric Adams take the New York City mayoral race by a landslide. Seriously, Curtis Srila?
Yeah,
yet another animated buffoon making an attempt to infiltrate politics. At least he is back on the streets where he belongs. And this time he should issue the beret. He would be better suited. He would be better suited out there with. Oh God, I don't know if I want to say this.
Must be an organic cuff.
Okay, I didn't say that. The ladies, I didn't want to go there, but there you go. Oh my goodness, what else we got here?
A grinder.
Oh, let's see. We got some more comments here. Cinnamon Canella. Minneapolis has a history that has just been unfold. Okay. Yeah. And green-eyed baby.
Florida,
we got
house.
Elections are stolen, not working. And then finally Chris says, yes, Michelle Wu, mayor of my hometown. So we are caught up with comments. Let's talk to our next conversation piece. Travis Scott pauses Astroworld performance after seeing ambulance in the crowd. Jill, you wanted to talk about this. It was about a concert that happened last night.
He didn't pause his performance. It was actually the police that paused it 40 minutes after they came to collect all the dead bodies. He kept singing through as they were raising them out and lifting them from the crowd. And I guess there was some kind of situation where he was performing and the crowd was squished into this festival up against the barricades. And there's footage, everywhere of some kids running to the sound guy because Apple was streaming the show. And kids ran up and were trying to tell the guy who had a camera, and he told them to get lost, basically. So there were a lot of big mistakes and some deaths of kids getting crushed to death. 14-year-old, so far 8 people, but out of hundreds that went to the hospital. But there's the damaging footage that they're showing is Travis Scott throughout his performance with a ambulance driving in the middle of this crowd to come and pick up these kids from the festival, because somehow somebody, I wonder who it was that called 911, they got there, but kids were jumping on the police cars. And there's footage of kids saying, I don't care. I know you guys are sad, but I did what I effing wanted to do. I had fun. I like to rage.
Wow.
And, it really was like watching a bunch of demon-possessed monsters. I really fear for our nation when I see things like that. I think it's a wrap when I see Gen Z. because I know a lot of people think a lot of them, but you know, in the middle of them picking up a kid's dead body, and you know, like when you're surfing through, they're surfing the body through. He was dead. You could see I don't know how long he'd been dead because rigor mortis had already started to set in his arms. People got trampled.
Jeez.
It was horrific.
So Jill, let me ask, sorry to interrupt. Did he perform? I'm like, I don't know who Travis Scott is, right? So
he started to hum when they were lifting the body, and then he picked up and kicked into a new song.
You're
Isn't
kidding
he
me.
the father of one of the
hold on. You're kidding me. He continued his performance while all this was going on.
It was an inhuman response, in my opinion. I don't even know what to say. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because it was not human how he responded during his show. It was not a human reaction to see that. And yes, some will say, well, maybe he thought they passed out. But even still, then you could see that he tried to get another friend to introduce somebody else and said, give him a hand, right? And the crowd didn't give him a hand. They were all, you're talking 50,000 people were there, this one pocket of where it happened. It had already reverberated. The energy had already reverberated to where nobody clapped. So everybody was aware, except Travis Scott. Either that or he's just not the brightest bulb in the bunch. But what that was just really the energy. You have to see it. I just really don't know what to say. It was an inhuman response. It just wasn't a human person who would respond like that.
Yeah, Travis Scott has children with Kylie Jenner, or is about to have a second child.
Oh, and she was filming too. It was on her story as well. You know, but not the bodies, just the fun parts. You see, we have a big problem here, and I've always said this: words are powerful. Oh, wait, what was it he said? Let's raise some. Now I want you all to raise some hell. So that even more just played into it. And I'll tell you, words have power, and the energy that, you know, when they say 2 or more people come together in prayer, let's put 50,000 people together in a mantra, a chant. What do you have? But what energy are you creating? And it's evil. Those songs have a mantra feeling that is saying some, I don't know, it's dark. It's just darkness. And anybody who's spiritually connected somehow on any level knows that it is. It's dark. And you're engaging in some real darkness. That was darkness. But watch it. You'll see. I'm not crazy.
Aisha, anything you want to add? I don't know if there is anything we can add.
No, just no. I remember in the 90s that you know, when Puffy had that concert, and that a few people had gotten stomped to death, and he got sued.
He got sued because the doors were locked.
Yeah,
and the doors were locked, and I think it was a fire, wasn't it?
I don't recall. I don't think there was a fire in that one. But I recall that's when he was a student at Howard.
But I knew people who never messed with him because of
his
that.
Career.
Yeah, but I know people from like Brooklyn who were like, I'm not messing with him, because they remembered that. But here's the thing. This is, you know, if you're going to be too cheap but see, they say that Travis Scott always likes to break the rafters, like capacity. And he encourages his fans to jump borders and jump the fences. And, you know, if somebody detects that, there will be lawsuits. There's rumors about fentanyl being sold in the actual concert. Don't know. They'll probably do their autopsies. But yeah, you're right. But at this point, like I said, it's all still darkness. All of those guys, they don't even sing. They have mantra songs that repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. And if you keep saying, go F yourself all day, go F yourself, say it about 100 times. You know, there's this technique, the Meisner technique. It's an acting school. And when you first start learning acting there, and I'm not a great actress or anything, but the people that I watch, they do improvisation, and you would have to say something over and over. Hi, 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 hi. You say it for 20 minutes, hi to each other, back and forth. Every intonation of hi changes. And typically it always runs into something really aggressive. Hi. And I kind of am starting to see that with some of the music, because I do believe the words are powerful. But when he said, I want you all to raise some hell up in here, some people were saying, this is so awful. It's like he's enjoying this and paying back Baphomet by standing up here. And then when they were carrying the bodies, he was going, ooh. And then they had, of course, it was creepy. It was a creepy moment.
Let's move on from this. It's a little bit dreary here. So, Jen is saying they had issues earlier in the day also with people running past security. Jen is also saying the cell phone footage I saw on Facebook of him continuing to perform through the desk was so disturbing.
Very.
Cinema Canela saying evil got loose after pandemic lockdown.
Yeah.
And Chris is saying true, Jill, very dark and equally dangerous. So, yeah.
I have to say that the reason I know it's dark, but I'll even say that knowing Prince the way I knew him, he took some kind of accountability in his later years for some of his earlier stuff. And a lot of people didn't understand why he refused to play certain things, but he knew the words were power, and he knew they were like mantras. And he also knew that his stardom would give you like the power and the authority of a lot of stuff. And it was something that you really needed to handle with care. And unfortunately, we're in a time where everybody wants the power and authority, and we know what entity wants the power and authority. So like I said, the shift is happening whether people realize it or not. And this return that America's having in astrology, I should do another page on that, but the Pluto return that's happening, it's huge. Pluto will actually be in the same alignment that it was in 1776 in February 22nd. So it's going to be bumpy, people, very bumpy, because Pluto is the great reveal, takes all the panties off.
Okay. Let's have our last conversation piece tonight. Well, it's finally started, the Ahmaud Arbery case. Oh, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I think one of the first things that the jury is made up of all white people except one person. So let's talk about that. What are your thoughts about that, ladies?
Well, the judge, he said he recognizes it, and he recognizes that there is a bias there, but he's not making any moves to change it. One of the things I guess that regular people should know is that there are like 9 attorneys for the defense, because like each defendant has like 3 attorneys on record with them. And so it is very confusing with all of those defense attorneys there. And each one of those attorneys got to pick and choose, what jurors they wanted. So it, usually when there's a defendant, there's like one attorney representing them, or they have a team, and then there's one attorney that's speaking and says, well, we question juror 164 and this one and that one. Well, there were 9 attorneys and 3 representing one of each person. So there were 3 different attorneys saying, okay, we have problems with this juror, and this juror. So the jury selection took a lot of time, and they ended up dismissing all of the Black jurors. And then they recently dismissed another juror for making a joke about Ahmaud Arbery.
Jill?
Well, I mean, it's just like the Kyle Rittenhouse travesty trial that's going on. I mean, already the judge has set it up where it's definitely going to be appealed. Secondly, with Ahmaud Arbery, it's horrific. It's really expected. But judges, by the way, don't always have to be 100 years old people, whoever is appointing them. You know, and our concept of a judge is not like anything we've seen on TV. It's very different, and what they're allowed to do and what they're allowed to say. And I think that for me, it doesn't surprise me. And I can't really say anything at this moment until I actually see how this trial is going to fare. It will probably, I hope it isn't, but it will probably not be the outcome that any of us want.
Well, I watched the opening arguments.
Right.
I have to say the district attorney did a very good job in terms of laying out the case and basically saying that, look, these are the facts. This is what happened. That when it comes to those who are charged, there's the father, the son who actually did the shooting, and then the neighbor who went along, videotaped the whole thing, and basically helped them to corner him.
Crazy, right?
Right. So the father's attorney offered to not give an opening argument. However, when his son's attorney gave a opening argument, his was longer. The father's attorney got up and was shifting like visuals and things that the other attorney was doing without permission. The judge had to stop twice, send the jury out, and reprimand him for doing that. He's like, look, you don't do that. That's not proper etiquette. You make me nervous when you do that, and you just jump up out your seat.
True.
You know, that's not proper etiquette. He had to tell him twice. And he's like, the next time, he basically was like, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but the next time you do that, there's going to be some consequences and repercussions. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the other guy, he gave a small opening statement, but the one that was the longer one, of course, this is the attorney for the son who actually did the shooting. Here's where he went wrong, is that he talked about the man who owned the house and why he had put up cameras, and saying that there had been people who had been on the property before looking in the house, and that there had been some break-ins in the neighborhood before. But Ahmaud Arbery he didn't do those things. So basically, he set this up, but the way he described it was, it wasn't Ahmaud, and it wasn't any of the people who were on trial whose property had been broken into or anything. So basically, and then he tried to play the race card, right? And this whole thing is basically, you were supposed to say why your client was used self-defense, because your claim was self-defense, to shoot this man. But basically, you basically set it up to say he had no reason to, because it wasn't this young man, and your client had no run-ins with anyone. It was just like pointless. It's like, okay, so the person whose property it was, who had reason to defend their property, was not on trial for anything.
Right.
So and then you also ran the tape back of the 911 person asking your client, what did he do wrong? I'll send someone out, but I need to know what he did wrong. And then you don't explain why your client went out with a gun. And then he went on to say, but all he had to do was answer my client when my client said, stop, I want to talk to you. No, he did not. I'm not going to stop when someone with a gun pulls up in a truck to me and says, hey, what are you doing? Especially not a white guy in a pickup truck. But I have to tell you this. They did a very good job at making him look less like a hillbilly redneck and looking more like a suburbanite. Because when they put the picture of him sitting in the courtroom next to his mugshot side by side, different people. They made him lose like 40 pounds. They put foundation on his face. All the redness was out of his face. He was clean shaven, haircut, had a suit and tie on, no dirty t-shirt, nothing. I mean, totally different person.
Wow.
Totally different person. They had him running and jogging his own self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But here's the other problem in America. We have a problem with our district attorneys. I mean, what is it? We just saw that Damian Williams was put in place in the Southern District of New York of U.S. attorneys. And he's only one of 7 of over 240 or something, 300 across, so he's in charge. And, but I'm just so uneasy with these cases that are going on and chipping away at the, I guess, our belief in our justice system, because these are like, these are towns where these things are happening. They were supposedly, people aren't even hiding their racism anymore or where their biases lie, even in the courts. So hopefully we can move on. But until we start really dealing with some of the infrastructure in these regions, it's not going to change. And and here's the other thing. Every time we put a people of color or a Black person in these positions, like a Damian Williams, they're walking into no different than how Obama, it was cleanup man, cleaning up something. And I'm a little bit like, okay, this is really scary, that the fact that they can't put white people in who want to do good. I mean, that don't want to clean things up. It's like Merrick Garland. Dude has a house in like Greenwich, Connecticut. What are we, really? This guy's not going to do anything. Yeah. He's not. He won't jeopardize where his belief systems were or how he's been voting all of his years or his pocketbook. Hell, he married up too. So, the
DA in this case, though, she did a really good job. I have to say that in watching her, she did a really good job, to the point that when the defendants did their opening arguments, it was kind of like, where are you all going with this?
I hope so, but these people,
it could be a hung jury.
It would be a hung jury. Who wants to go home knowing you were on the jury that actually indicted these white men if you live in one of those rural communities?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of stuff to consider. And I'm sure when they pick those jurors, that's exactly what they might be, people in their community who are like, open and honest and, not racist, but they might live in a community where they think, I don't know if I want to put myself personally in the position where my whole family turns against me.
Right.
And that's a problem with even this jury system. I mean, it's really, it's crippling, because in one really weird way, people are so tuned in now because of social media that it's going to be difficult to find anybody who hasn't heard about something and be unbiased in anything. It's really difficult, or have cognitive skills I'm sure there's a few dumb as rocks people sitting on that jury, and that's going to be brutal for the ones who are trying to have justice done. There are a few that are definitely there. I know they are, but whether they can win and hold out, I'm not so sure.
Do you think this trial will have an impact on, well, I don't know how long it's going to run, but any impact? Well, the midterms are a long way away, so I don't think they'll have a lot of impact. But do you think this will have any sort of, could re-energize Democratic support, depending on what the outcome is? We don't know what the outcome is going to be, but obviously there's going to be enough eyes on it.
I don't
they'd
think
be better
this one
flipping a
will.
coin.
I don't think this one will. I think the Kyle Rittenhouse one will have more of an impact. And I say that because the people who were killed in that one were white.
Got it.
And even then, he didn't want the people to be charged or spoken as victims.
Right.
Dude, everybody in America is saying they're a victim. So, that was just ridiculous. And I'm being very sarcastic, but that was very telling. And he's already made mistakes, the judge. Somebody sitting in the back, like writing up what they're going to do if they lose. Both sides. What the judge's conduct is very, very important. And you've also got to remember the amount of celebrity that these regular people are getting all of a sudden. Judges, they're very impacted by it. And you can see their egos. And that is really another thing we're dealing with. That some of them really like the stardom, like a Joe Manchin. He likes it. He actually enjoys being the one that kids are actually running down the street begging, we want to live. He's okay with that. Okay. Which is why, And Kristen Sinema, who I'm sure is having an affair with somebody powerful. $32,000 a year she made last year, but she's sleeping with somebody because putting herself out like this to be nearly egged. You know what I'm saying? There is a payoff here. There's something, and it's going to come out on both of them.
Okay. On that note, we are finished another episode of State of Things with Aisha and Jill. Have some final comments here from the wonderful audience. Let's start here. Cinnamon Canela goes, Ahmaud Arbery, another dark and super sad episode this month. Real Django, this case down here is so heated. I just don't get into conversations with certain people. Fully understood.
Yeah.
I hope Chris is saying, I hope Mr. Arbery's murder does not go unpunished. Enough already. I heard his mom on the New York news yesterday. My heart goes out to her.
Awful.
Real Django, I'm just uneasy about the Ahmaud Arbery case. I just hope people down here don't act the fool after the verdict. Also, those knuckleheads think that running up on a black person jogging with a gun pointing at them is not responsible for killing him because they think it's okay that say it's self-defense. WTH. Chris, Joe Manchin, hashtag rat face.
That's a good one too.
And Jen says, great discussion as always. Chris Langford, have a great week, everybody.
You
so
too.
That's another episode of Staggers State of Things.
Nope, State of Things.
I got it wrong again. I keep on getting. I do it. Sorry. State of Things with Aisha and Jill.
It's not the best name.
No, it is. It's just that I just brain cramp. Brain cramp. I was gonna say something else, but brain cramp. State of Things with Aisha and Jill. Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you. I passed. All right. So, folks, another episode is done. But as always, before we let our wonderful ladies leave, we ask them to tell us, if I can find it, where we can get a hold of them. So just give me a moment here, folks. It's been one of those conversations today. All right. First up, we have
me,
Jill Jones. Where can we find you?
Jill D. Jones, Twitter.
Wonderful. You look so comfortable in your orange.
It's a little chilly today. But
yeah, what's going on there? Next up, Aisha K. Staggers.
At Aisha Staggers on Twitter and AK Staggers on Instagram.
Wonderful. and myself. I better know where I can find myself. Sometimes I don't know. Best place to find me is at the drvibeshow.com, or the next best place, Twitter at drvibeshow. That's the Twitter thing. I'd like to thank everyone who watched this live, who I catch here: Chris, Jen, Real Django, Cinema Canella, Christopher here in Canada, Tim also here in Canada, Blue Rains, Green Eyed Baby. I think I got everybody. If I didn't get your name, it's because of my head, not my heart. Oh, more comments coming out. I just want to make sure. And Cinema says, have a great night. Well, we'll get 1 extra hour of sleep. I need it, obviously, you can tell. I need that extra hour of sleep. So, as always, like to close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. Thank you so much. Always touch base with us on any subjects you'd like us to have conversations about. All right? God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. And remember to give yourselves grace. Next week, everybody, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday.